On the Committee on Economic Revitalization, Business, joint with Housing, Standing Committee Report number 278-12, House Bill number 2103, House Draft 1. Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise in opposition.
Please proceed in opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, this is the real thing. This is not a study. Remember we talked about the State Bank last week. We said, look, it's only a study. This is the real McCoy. This is the bank that will be established as the State of Hawaii Bank. And quite frankly, I don't want to repeat what I said the last time, so we've done a little bit of homework. We've looked into it. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we looked at other states and what they're doing. In Massachusetts, lo and behold, actually went through a few months ago what we are going through now, and they did some research. And I want to cite a couple of things that they found out. First of all, they found out that publicly owned banks is really not a phenomenon that's in developed countries. It's usually in third world countries that the state owns the bank. And our good friend from downtown Honolulu mentioned that China is a leading state bank successful example. Right now, there's not been even a consideration of a state-owned bank since 1970. And the Bank of North Dakota actually began in 1919. And they, Mr. Speaker, started out with a $2 million capitalization. And in the Massachusetts study, it says the original capitalization, if put in today's dollars for a similar startup, would be $3.2 billion. I asked my colleagues, do you want to get a state bank with $3.2 billion because you see the model of North Dakota and you want to make this the State Bank of Hawaii when we don't even have a funded liability for our pensions, for our trust funds, for our health program? Another revealing statistic was that the State Bank of North Dakota has $4 billion in assets. Guess what the Bank of Hawaii has? $4 billion in assets. Guess how many years Bank of Hawaii has been around to get $4 billion in assets? And almost 100 years of the Bank of North Dakota. We are not going to get an immediate return on this unless we really put a lot of money into it. And I know the intention of getting the money into it is to buy these foreclosed mortgages. I asked my colleagues, do you want your constituents to bail out the banking industry that has already been bailed out in the mortgage industry that owes a lot of money to the taxpayers already? In addition to that, it is not the FDIC that the deposits are insured in the Bank of North Dakota. It's the taxpayers of North Dakota. So this is another reminder that the burden of proof of the viability of this is not on the organizers of the bank, but those who are the taxpayers in the state of Hawaii. And I know some people took a little bit of umbrage when I said, do you know who they've got running the First Bank of Hawaii? This is the bill that came in last year. It's the governor and his political appointees who are going to be the board of directors. Well, guess who runs the Bank of North Dakota? It's run and overseen by 3 commissioners. The first primary commissioner is the governor. The second is the attorney general. Then it's the agricultural commissioner. So do you see a little bit of political stuff mixed into this? I think it's as we had predicted. The other thing about the Bank of North Dakota that we have to realize is that it was really put in place for farming, and now it's not even doing farming loans. 50% of its loans are actually buying the loans of small banks. North Dakota is a rural area, and they have a lot of small banks. So basically, half of their business is simply buying up loans from small banks. Hawaii has a handful of banks, but do you see any hue and cry for small banks to say, you know, we need you, Bank of State of Hawaii, to buy loans from us? There's no hue and cry from our small bankers. Another interesting point of I think, which we forget, thinking that North Dakota, by its bank, has been successful. It mentions in the Massachusetts study, and this is not me, it's saying North Dakota has fared exceptionally well during the recent national recession. People have to be mindful that North Dakota's overall performance is mostly attributable to oil and natural gas extraction and high commodity prices. And it is me when I say it's also run by Republicans who are conservative, fiscally responsible people. And that's another reason why this thing works, is because of the economy there and who's running it, as well as the oil and the extraction industries that are driving it. Mr. Speaker, I should also add that the small business loans...
Representative Fontaine.
I yield my time.
So ordered.
My goodness.
Please proceed, Representative Ward.
And this is not even third reading yet, but this is still important stuff. And again, I am not speaking, it's the study that Massachusetts did, because it said that there were like 18 or other states that were considering to do this bank, and Massachusetts says, we're out of here. After this study, we have decided not to do it. So I say that as a way we don't have to reinvent the wheel, because Massachusetts gathered all this information. Basically what they said is that the burden of proof of loans to our small businesses should be the federal government, not just this state bank. 2/3 of the profits of the State Bank of North Dakota actually do go back to the state, but that also says that 1/3 of their costs are administration. And whenever you get a business that takes a 33 1/3% just to run it, that's rather high. What they do put in the coffers is $30 million. So the benefit is substantial. $30 million a year is substantial. But remember, this is a bank that's been in business almost 95 years. And we're talking about starting from scratch. And it's going to be an elixir, because we're going to make money on buying mortgages at 75 cents on the dollar. Not. The other thing that we need to know is that the state bank is liable, or the state that is liable for any of the bank's losses. And I think I mentioned that in terms of our own constituents. One of the kickers here, in addition, is a fact that the DCCA director has noted as follows: arguably, the soundness of Hawaii's financial institutions may be compromised and jeopardized by transferring state monies to a state-owned bank. The point is, Mr. Speaker, we have two of the healthiest banks in the nation. They have fared very well. There's not a shortage of capital. They're not interested to bail out the mainland banks that have primarily cheated a lot of our residents or are stonewalling our residents. And to say that we should put this burden on our constituents is what I'm basically arguing against. That's the bottom line. And finally, do we really want to pony up $3 billion to do what the Bank of North Dakota did? I think it's a resounding no. I think if we ask our constituents, if we ask ourselves, can we afford to do a bank, to do high-risk loans with the state of the economy the way it is today? I think it's obvious, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your indulgence, and I hope everybody sort of starts changing, thinking, perhaps maybe government is not the best thing to get into the banking industry. Maybe we should rethink what we're good at and stick to our knitting in those areas and not go too far out on a limb, as North Dakota did, and did well 100 years ago in an entirely different climate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Okay, in opposition, Representative Ward.